Hey guys, welcome back. It's Neon, and I'm here to talk about Dynamite Entertainment, a comic book publisher that's in the crosshairs of Twitter right now simply for choosing to work with the wrong kinds of people. I guess that's their crime. Before I get started with the video, thank you to everyone who subscribed lately. It's definitely helping the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed so far. It helps the channel grow, helps us make more content, helps us connect with you, helps us talk about stuff like this. So we talked about last week, Geeky and I, we had a live stream talking about all the drama going on in the comic book industry right now over politics. It's over politics, and people are sort of choosing their battle lines based on the political affiliation of comic book creators, right? Can't make this up. Gotta be current year. Anyway, Dynamite Entertainment, which we've actually talked about Dynamite here on the channel before. This is the first time we've talked about it, but we actually talked about them in kind of a negative light because the only comic book we've ever reviewed on CLOWNFISH TV on the YouTube channel is the Rainbow Bright reboot from Dynamite. We actually gave it a bad review because it didn't have anything to do with Rainbow Bright. Had nothing to do with classic Rainbow Bright. It used the name. It changed pretty much everything else. It was just a very, very strange way to go for a comic book series based on an established IP, and we didn't give it a very good review. That was the only time we've ever talked about Dynamite Entertainment. Now, Dynamite is coming under fire from Twitter because, we know how Twitter works, especially comics Twitter, is coming under fire because they dare work with Ethan Van Sciver, who we talked about before. He did the Cyberfrog crowdfunding campaign, made like $800,000 and blew people's minds, and they're pissed because he's going to be doing some work with Dynamite Entertainment. They actually will give him the time of day, and according to Twitter, if your political opinions are different from the majorities, then you need to be driven out of the industry altogether. You're not allowed to exist in the comic book industry. So he's doing this crossover cover. That was sort of part one. Part two is Christopher Priest is actually going to be working on Vampirella. And Christopher Priest is now sort of on the naughty list too, because he said something offhandedly about there being two genders, and Newsarama kind of pounced on him and had him explain himself. What could he possibly mean by that? So he's sort of on the outs now too with the mainstream comic book industry. So you put the two together, and now Dynamite is coming under fire. We've got ladies making comics out here on Twitter, talking about how Dynamite retweeted Bounding Into Comics. Now, Bounding Into Comics is more of a conservative-leaning comic book site. They're not an alt-right Nazi site like some of these far, far left comic book blogs would have you believe. And we did talk about Bounding Into Comics before because their Facebook page went MIA for a couple of days, and we don't know what happened there, but I have a hunch somebody probably flagged them, falsely flagged them to get them taken down. But Dynamite retweeted Bounding Into Comics coverage, and because they retweeted Bounding Into Comics coverage, they're making a big show of how they're going to unfollow Dynamite now, because how dare Dynamite retweet any publicity they get, even if it's apolitical in nature. How dare they let people like Ethan Van Sciver and Christopher Priest work for them or work with them. This just cannot be. So yeah, the site they retweeted is basically the Breitbart of comics, and this comes after they've been criticized for working with a guy who makes part of his living decapitating Rose Tico dolls on YouTube, among other right-wing culture warrior harassment campaign type things. What? So everybody is like, oh my God, Dynamite Entertainment, how dare you? How dare you work with Ethan Van Sciver? How dare you retweet Bounding Into Comics? Now, the funny thing about Bounding Into Comics, regardless of what you think of them, Bounding Into Comics is actually on the upswing. They're on the upswing where a lot of these comic book blogs are holding on by their fingertips. Bounding Into Comics has like 250,000 followers on Facebook. Their Alexa rank is very good. I think their traffic is increasing. People are looking for a little bit more objectivity in their comic book journalism because it never became so apparent until the last couple of years, like how far left politically and how weirdly political a lot of these comic book news sites have become. So yeah, Bounding Into Comics has definitely picked up its audience. I don't think they're sensationalist at all. They absolutely are conservative, but I don't think they're sensationalist. So now, so many people on Twitter calling to boycott Dynamite Entertainment. I would be willing to bet that a lot of people calling for the boycott of Dynamite Entertainment probably don't buy their books anyway. That's just a theory I have. Now, one of the people who had a real problem with Dynamite working with Van Sciver and being retweeting Bounding Into Comics is Jill Pantozzi. I think it's Pantozzi. And now I did see this. A couple people retweeted this on Twitter. I think it might have actually been Umbrella Guy who retweeted this. She's actually an editor at IO9. Okay, I couldn't find her retweet. I think she untweeted it. Jill Pantozzi from IO9, owned by Gizmodo Media Group, recently got sold. IO9 recently got sold because they are not making money. So Gizmodo's not making money. Univision unloaded them off onto a new media group who was actually looking to make money. And there was a sort of an editorial mandate out there telling people that they needed to do articles, content that generated money. But we've got a representative from IO9 out there. Comics publishers, please pay attention to the internet. You know, like, oh my God, how could you do this? I think Dynamite knows exactly what they are doing. I think Dynamite is looking at the bottom line. They're looking at dollars, and they're like, you know what? Somebody who generated $800,000 strictly based on a YouTube presence is probably a good bet. We probably will sell some comics, and we're going to sell a hell of a lot more comics than we are, you know, with somebody like EBS or Christopher Priest than we are going to with another Rainbow Bright, an ill-conceived Rainbow Bright reboot that has nothing to do with Rainbow Bright. But it's not just these folks that are criticizing Dynamite's decision. We've got, God, who is this? This is Cheryl Lynn Eaton, who used to work for Oni in Humanoids. Now she's out there attacking Dynamite too, and she's also attacking Christopher Priest. Now Cheryl Lynn Eaton, I can't see her tweets because she's blocked me. I've never talked to her, but apparently I guess I don't follow the right people. I don't know. Apparently I follow the wrong people. But Cheryl Lynn Eaton, who has worked in comics, I think she's working on some DC stuff now. She's like, I don't feel safe at Dynamite and suspect that that company will be a publishing house for the alt-right soon enough. What? What do you mean the alt-right? Dynamite will be a no-go zone for black people while trolling black readers with Priest-written books featuring cover art by white supremacists. Okay, so Christopher Priest, I don't know if we mentioned this in our previous video. He is an African-American. Christopher Priest is a black dude, and he's going to be writing Vampirella, and I guess the white supremacist is supposed to be Ethan Van Sciver. I guess. Well, Cheryl Lynn Eaton isn't going to go anywhere near Dynamite, so I don't see him listening to what any black woman has to say about this because he already sees us as paranoid, hysterical, and black men in the industry revere him too much as an elder statesman and pioneer. God, this is just crazy. Why is now this guy's like, just did a quick Google search and Christopher Priest is a Comicsgate darling. Christopher Priest has been a darling of comic book fans for years. He's definitely earned everything, every good thing that comes to him. He's earned it. He's been in comics for a long time. A mess, but they loved him before this. Okay, well, at least she admits it. Using as a cover for harassing non-conservative black writers in the industry. To them, Priest is the only one who deserves to be there, and everyone else is affirmative action, keeping white men from the jobs they deserve. God, this is just crazy. This is just crazy. This just goes down the rabbit hole here. So basically, we've got other people in comics calling for Dynamite to be wiped from existence, I guess. I don't know, which shouldn't surprise anyone. If you've seen how a lot of these people, you know, have, and we talked about before, how a lot of the crowdfunding projects, they're not being covered. Bleeding Cool did finally cover Doug TenNaples' project over the weekend, but they got a backhand slap in there. They covered it. They talked about the dollar amounts. And then they talked about what an awful person they thought Doug TenNaples was at the end of the article. So, like, politics absolutely do come into play in comic books now. It's just like, I mean, even if you're moderate, if you're moderate, you get attacked. Like, if you're not on board with, you know, some of these ideas, like, you're not allowed to work in the mainstream comic book industry. But it seems like publishers like Dynamite are starting to realize, like, hey, you know, who's actually buying the comic books, and we got to make money, and, you know, playing this political game is not doing us any good. The comic book industry's dying. The direct market's dying. Shops are going out of business at a shocking rate. IDW is hanging on by its fingertips. I mean, it's crazy, but we want to go out there and we want to just drive off the existing customer base. And you're allowed to have opinions, you know, Cheryl, you're allowed to have opinions about people. But, you know, now I don't know if she's currently working. I think she was working for Oni and now she's not. But when you've got other people out here like this Jill working for IO9, you know, and showing clear bias when you're supposed to be the editor of, you know, what should be a mostly objective pop culture blog, you know, it's just not a good look. That's not a good look. I think someone at Dynamite is actively courting alt-right groups, either for cash or due to bigoted beliefs. So they're going to push to blacklist Dynamite Entertainment now, I think, because of, you know, they're working with the wrong people. I never thought comics would get to this point. I never thought comics would be so divisive, you know, and we've seen so many crazy things. It's only been the last couple of years. I mean, look, you know, Geeky and I both identify as liberals. You know, we generally back the blue candidates. And, you know, comics predominantly, I mean, the people working in comics predominantly have been liberal, but they haven't been crazy. They haven't been as crazy as they have been the last couple of years. In the last like 2 or 3 years, it's just, there's just an uptick in absolute insanity and just paranoia in the comic book industry. It's like the industry is burning down. We don't have time to get into political squabbles. Just like comic books, you know, the direct market is dying. None of these people are going to have jobs in comics if it doesn't get fixed. Nobody, regardless of your political affiliation, is going to have a job in the comic book industry if it doesn't get fixed. So it's going to take everybody actually working together and trying to figure out how to fix things. And people are trying to fix things and they don't want to hear it. They just want to talk politics. And, you know, it's just, I mean, this is really sad. It's really sad to see people like, you know, Billy Tucci get jumped when Billy Tucci 20 years ago was held in very high regard. And he has been up until lately. But I mean, really the 90s, you know, she just exploded and he was doing really well. And now they're, you know, now the Spanish Inquisition's coming after him. So this is how the direct market, the comic book direct market, is going to die. Twitter is going to murder the direct market. Blogs, comic book blogs, overly political comic book blogs are going to help murder the comic book direct market. And it's really sad to see. I never thought we'd get to this point. Again, you know, a lot of the people who are involved in this, like, we've known them for years and they weren't this crazy, but everybody is so obsessed with politics right now. They're so obsessed with politics that they're going to kill entertainment. And entertainment is supposed to be a way to get away from how toxic the world has become right now. And you know, this toxicity is creeping into entertainment, all entertainment, not just comic books, but video games and movies and TV. Everything's a fight. Everything is a fight to these people. And it's like there's not going to be anything left for anybody to fight over when it's all said and done, because everything is going to get killed off. All of this is going to die. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.